Hey, welcome along to session 4 on this automation in music and sound production course. So we are now in the 4th session, the final look at automation processes and techniques. And in this session, we're going to focus on MIDI CCs. CCs stands for continuous controllers. When MIDI first came about in the 1980s, all of these data and status bytes were associated with MIDI. Without going into too much information, please see another course on the Academy here all about MIDI and those areas, and feel free to look online as well and investigate all about MIDI if you don't already know a bit about it. But yeah, MIDI allows devices to connect and communicate with each other, and that's what we're essentially doing here. So I'm going to show you 2 ways in which we use MIDI CCs in particular, and those are with external synthesizers, drum machines, samplers, for example. We not only play those with the notes of the keyboard, but we can actually tweak some of the modulation controls on them. So for example, filters sections, envelope sections, LFOs, and all of the associated types to do with LFOs. So we're able to do a lot of that, and the twisting of those controls on the external synthesizer sends a MIDI message to our DAW whilst we're recording or after recording, and allows us to record those changes, and then sends the data back to the synthesizer, for example, a filter to move through a sweep. So we also use MIDI CCs when we are trying to put some expression and human performance maybe back into a recorded sample library. I'm going to show you a bit about that in this session as well, using mapping CCs on a small controller to some functions inside a contact instrument, so we can, breathe a little bit more of humanizing a little bit more into the actual instrument itself. So yeah, CCs, there are a lot of them. I'll also take a little quick look at those and all of the ones that are available and is already assigned, but of which you can also assign. I could go very deep in this session, but it is just an overview of what you can do with CCs. I'm also only going to stay in Logic for this session. The other DAWs do this in exactly the same way, pretty much. Ableton, same area. It's all about clip envelopes, and you can access external MIDI CCs like I'm about to show you in Logic in that way. Cubase the same, and Pro Tools exactly the same as well. So let's get in, let's have a look at what I've got, and we'll play about with some MIDI CCs. Let's go. All right, so here we are in Logic. I've done a short little kind of 8-bar composition, including some drums, and programmed or recorded some notation off of a patch that I've made on my Novation A station. So it sounds like this. So the MIDI here is triggering my A station. All right, so that's linked up to my A station in the corner. I've got an arpeggiator here as well, programmed a little bit of a groove there, made some adjustments, and that is triggering those notes to kind of, play a rhythm along with the drums. On top of that though, I can now record MIDI CC information from the A station. I can play about with some of the controls on the front panel. I'm particularly just going to play about with the cutoff and resonance here, and then I'll show you how that gets recorded onto this MIDI region and where those MIDI CCs are located automation wise, and how we can also edit them. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to do a pass. I'm going to hit record, and I am now going to tweak some of the parameters on the A station. Let's do that. So I'm going to go over to the A station now, jump to that, and then hit record on my controller, and we will have a little play. Let's do it. All right, so as I was recording, you saw in the background these little lines come in. So this is the recording of the filter cutoff and the resonance controls. Me tweaking those as it was going. Now it was me just doing it quite quickly, but I wanted to do it a little bit roughly because we can now correct that using the CC data. So I'm now going to double click the region, go inside that, and inside Logic in particular, I can now click here, and we can now see in the background of this region, if I'm going to pull this up a little bit further, you can see a lot of data going on here. So this is where it is labeled automation MIDI, but this is essentially the CC's, the continuous controllers area, where if we go to this drop down list, we can see not only the region automation that you've already been used to, but now we can see all of the MIDI information that we can change in this area at the bottom. And there is a lot. There's a lot of MIDI control here, and it goes on for quite a lot. MSB and LSB functions. Not that you need to know that right now. That's a lot more in depth. But yeah, we can do note velocity. We can do pitch bend changes here. We'll have a look at a couple of those in a minute. I can change the programs, but down the bottom you can see what has actually been used here now. And if we click on those, we can now see each one of those changes. There's a little breath control change here that's been picked up. There's a message been sent from the device. So I want to try and find these two curved lines under here. These are the resonance and the actual filter controls that I did. Now, they're not actually named filter and resonance, unfortunately. So we've got to kind of find what those are. Now, sometimes, dependent on the external synthesizer or sampler or drum machine you're using, the CC for a filter, for example, a filter cutoff is usually CC 74. But in this case, it's a little bit different on my A station. It's sent a different CC message, a MIDI message to the Logic as a DAW. So we've got to kind of go through and find out what they are. Now I know they're not the bank LSBs, so let's see if it's this one here, 106. That's one of them. And let's have a look at this other one. Yeah, both of them are transmitting on channel 106. Both of these here. So this is what we've now got to change, and this is very much like the automation changes we were doing beforehand. So actually what I could do is really tidy this up now and get rid of what's going on here. From the start we'll have the filter down, and maybe we'll filter it right up like this to the end of the bars. And obviously we could change this, we could put another node in the middle, and we can also add curves here, so we know that we can select a curve tool, for example. We can do this here as well. All right, so let's see how this sounds now. Gone a little bit too far there, gone too high. The cutoff is really kind of messed up, so it took it too high. I'm going to pull that back until we get that right. So let's get to our pointer tool here. Let's just pull this node down, but you can hear how it filtered up. So that message there, now that CC data is now sending back out through my system, through my MIDI man external MIDI device. back to the synthesizer, the external synthesizer itself, and it's telling that control to filter. We're not actually seeing the knob move, but internally the filter is being told to open up as per my automation line. I might start a little bit more open as well. Let's see how that sounds now when it gets to its peak over here. We're obviously going to look at the resonance control in a moment as well. Maybe change that. Yeah, I'm kind of liking the way that that is working. So what we'll do is we'll go to now the res, and maybe we'll correct some of this. We'll have it as a little bit of a peak. Maybe we'll see how this works. Pretty much like this. We'll maybe take it down on that last note. Let's see how that works now. Almost. Let's make some other little changes. I'm still going to drop that back a bit. We'll start it a little higher and go. There we go. So that's how that works. All right. So I am controlling parameters on my external synthesizer using those MIDI CCs, continuous controller data bytes being sent to the synthesizer. Let's now have a look at programming now a little bit of a vocal here. So I've got now a quite a haunting little vocal inside Void and Vista in Contact. Here we go. A very, very cool vocal engine. So another way that we can use CCs is through mapping and automation. Actually, I haven't done this before in a session. It is something that we'd look at on a deeper session, as I said in the previous sessions. Have a look at my other courses. But we can map controls, pots, sliders, pads to anything that moves within a DAW. Now what I'm going to do here is with this control surface, which is generally mapped to a certain amount of CCs, 4 different CCs, usually dynamics, expression and volume with a spare, of which I can map to anything. But in this case, I am going to have a look at what it's mapped to already, and see if I can attach and create and make some of these parameters here that as I'm playing, I can move some of these expressively with the faders on my controller. So let's have a look a moment. Let's see what is already mapped. So motion and ensemble are mapped to my middle fader, my second fader. There's nothing currently mapped to the first or the third, and the contacts volume, as you can see up the top right hand corner, is mapped to volume. I'm going to leave that at full volume. So I want to play about with the 3. So, okay, so what I'd like to do is map now the morphing between the vocals, because this slider here can go across. So what we can do is right click on the instrument and learn MIDI CC data. All right, so I'm gonna now click that and move my fader. That is now mapped to that fader as I move it up and down. So we're now going to get this. I can move between them. CC is still motion. And now what I'd like to do is attach the dynamic and the filter to the 3rd fader. So we're going to right click, learn CC, put it for its full range, and I'm also going to do the same on this one, learn CC. So now both of those are attached. So I should be getting So now I've got all these functions mapped to my control surface, and I can expressively play this. So what we're going to do now is record something along to the synth. All right, and there are my notes recorded, and you can see the CC data right there, of which, once again, let's go and inspect and have a look, see what we've got. And there we can see the controller data that we've just used. Modulation on CC1, expression, I've got the morphing there. There's even note velocity and aftertouch been recorded where I've actually played the keys on the piano. So once again, if we didn't get these right, we can now go in and edit these. Expression, for example. We can smooth out this line. But you'll now see as it plays through, if I solo this now, let's quickly have a look. And watch the controls and the morphing feature over here. We've got all that expressiveness, performance-wise, now put into that vocal, or those vocals, because there's quite a few there. So there you are. There's a look at MIDI CC data when you're recording MIDI notation inside a region. I hope you found this really useful. Again, this is very similar in all those other DAWs. Just figure it out if you're using any of those DAWs. It's going to be pretty much in the same places we've already been looking at. Yeah, but MIDI CC data, really useful. I use it continually to add expression, particularly with my controller. That's why Old Faithful is there, and that's what I do, you know, to add that perfect performance back in, adding that expressiveness back into, you know, static MIDI. Sometimes it can be static, so we're adding that performance, those performance characteristics back in. All right, so I will see you in the final 5th session, where I'm going to be doing some creative techniques with everything that we've learned so far. Well, some of what we've learned so far. We'll see what we get up to. So I will see you in that session. Have fun with MIDI CC data. Bye-bye.